Hi there viewers and YouTubers, and welcome to this week's Earth Predictions reading. Today is June the 9th. So I had a little preview on the channel, was it yesterday? Just showing you the cards that were coming out, so we'll run through those now. With these videos, I think it would probably be a good idea to keep popping back to see during the week the annotations that I add, because I tell you now what I think is going to happen or what the cards might be meaning, and then during the week any relevant news that crosses my path that is relative to the cards being portrayed, I just add little annotations on them. So it's quite interesting if you're following this whole planet reading or prediction card system to pop in and see the annotations and get that information for yourself. So once again, I won't particularly go over last week's cards. I think I put on 32 annotations from last week. There was a huge amount of activity that related to the suggestions that the cards put forward, including the strange Russian missile possibly that just went over Lebanon, the plane crash in Lagos with 153 dead. There were many earthquakes in the southern hemisphere and the northern in Italy, and it just goes on and on. So it's worth taking a look at that previous video. I'll put the link below. So the first card we have is the wheel. Now we continue to see planets line up in a more intense format this year than we've previously seen. So I think this wheel does relate to galactical issues in our solar system, just that continual lining up of planets and different perspectives and issues that go on with that. We had the lunar eclipse and the Venus transit last week, and I wonder if we have some other big conjunctions coming this week or something galactical that's going to follow. It is also just a suggestion of the whole cycle of life and everything that goes on. It's like a new life sign. The other thing I noted in the wheel was the moving water underneath, which I still get the feeling is related to planetary water movement. And last week there were quite a few sea earthquakes, and I wonder if we're going to see a few more sea earthquakes again in the standing of this reading. So we'll just keep an eye on that. The next card that was out is the Beast. So it's an interesting number on the top of the card. It's number 33, which turns to a 6, and I understand it's only 1 6, but in a biblical perspective, the 3 6s denote the beast. And well, I'm wondering then if this could be a sign of an active, what you would call or term a beast on the planet, such as a human beast. So someone who is potentially a threat to a lot of people or civilization the way we know it. So whether or not we see some major action from a political stance or a government or a country that is they do something that we would rather that they didn't do. That's one perspective from that card. The other is it could relate about animals. I've said that before. That is in theory an animal there, although it's very much like a dragon. And interestingly, we note that this is the Chinese year of the dragon, and interestingly again it's a water dragon year 2012. So with the card in the front about the wheel and the moving water issue, I wonder if this could denote volcanic activity, because we think of the beast as being base energy or possibly fire related energy, and it could be something to do with the seas, being 2012 as a water dragon. So I'm tying in all these possible variable thought forms. That was just another theory. I note last week we had quite a few big fires globally around the planet. There were 2 in Qatar, and one of them was a mall fire, and it actually killed many children that were in a creche there at the time. New Zealand lost 3 little triplets from one family there, and I think the funeral was on Friday for them. So there were a lot of children-related deaths and problems last week, and I wonder, the mother card has come out this week. I'm not sure if that's just still a residue from the horror losses of children globally through the planet, because there were some other families and children that were bombed throughout parts of the Middle East. So we've had a lot of sad, really sad loss of the beautiful innocent lives of our children, which should be protected. We are the ones that have to protect them. So the mother card, I feel, always does stand for that love and protection, as a couple of you have suggested as well. There's another thing that's been happening just recently called the casserole protests, and that's up in Quebec. They've started marching for the students, but they've also brought in mothers pushing children in prams, and they're walking around the streets banging casserole pots and spoons, and this is actually it's picking up pace around the globe, so it's a peaceful way of getting across a point that they're wanting change to take place, and this is how they are making their thoughts heard globally around the world. So the casserole protests are starting to really grow, and that's a whole feminine energy and that mother nurturing energy that's starting to show its potential through the planet at the moment. Earlier this week I visited an art gallery, and while I was there I thought to myself, now while I'm looking around at the various exhibits on display, I'm going to see what synchronistic feelings I get about it that I could tie into this Earth predictions reading. And there were three main elements present in the art gallery exhibition that I was watching. There were lots of photographs of the sea, really turbulent sea, and in it were icebergs. So I thought to myself, well, we could be talking North or South Pole related sea issues, which brought me back to the wheel, which brought me back to the beast, the volcanoes perhaps erupting. There were also lots of really strange, tall, little thin houses on angles as if they were being quite strongly shaken in an earthquake. And there were lots of little beds in these houses, like little bassinets, children's beds. And it gave me the feeling of possibly like an orphanage, or a place that would house many beds where many people sleep. And the houses reminded me a little bit when I visited up through Switzerland many years ago, those very tall, steep roofs that you have in the alpine countries to prevent snow from falling and sitting too much on the roofs. So I got the feeling of the northern hemisphere again, with some potential earthquakes, which I think the Tower card showed us as well. So that's just an interesting thing about the art gallery. And there was also another thing that I noticed quite prominently were the stars in some paintings, so they seemed to stand out, and that could tie into the wheel card again. So going back to these cards, the next card that came out was the Fool. So he's wanting to join us again this week, isn't he? He was there last week, and I think he caused quite a bit of turbulence with the various things falling from the sky, which is the general feeling I get for the Fool card. He's also showing youth again. So I'm still picking, there's lots of energy related to children around the planet, because he is a very youthful character. I'll stand by what I say with the Fool. It usually shows an indication of things falling out of the sky or out of space, shaky and turbulence, perhaps the small building in the background sitting very close to the edge, so we think of a little bit of shakiness, and that young energy associated with the card. So unpredicted, unexpected, very sudden, and perhaps on a journey or something that hasn't really been fully looked into, because that Fool is not really watching exactly where he's going. The next card out was the Tower. That was with us last week as well, I think, so we're getting a little bit of duplication here in the energies. They seem to be staying fairly firm, don't they? We said shakiness, earthquakes possibly is generally where I seem to sit with the Tower. That is a really old building, as if through that empirical part of the globe, the older part of our planet, where humanity have been residing for a much longer time than, for instance, where I live down in New Zealand. And the final card, the No card. I've said that before too, that I always get a bit of a feeling with the No card about, ooh, hold on to your hat, it's coming right now, wham. So I feel it's quite a strong card, and it just says, well, no, this isn't particularly very good. I don't feel it's a particularly good card when it shows up. So the last thing that I looked at was the numbers in the cards. I added them all up, and when I just removed the no card, because he wasn't actually in part of the reading, he was on the bottom of the deck, it added up to, that all of those cards there add up to the number 4. Now 4 is a very serious number. It's generally one of hard work or fixed solid energy, but it tends to be an uphill battle. It's a number that hasn't quite made it to halfway, so it constantly feels like it's struggling to get acclaim or satisfaction. So it will be a week with a little bit of argy-bargy energy around. Hopefully not quite as bad as last week, because the warrior isn't in this week, but it's still not a week of great harmony. 4s are generally a wee bit charged, and they feel kind of argy-bargy energy, like they have to get a message across. But when we go ahead and add the no, we get to the number 7. And when we get to the number 7, that takes us to quite a deeper spiritual realm. Traditionally, anciently, the 7 bodies that were presumed to make up our solar system were given the gift of the number 7. There's 7 days of the week. There's 7 notes in a diatonic scale. There's 7 hues in the colour spectrum. So 7 gives us a deeper meaning or vibration for the week, and it has a higher consciousness tie into a spiritual or soul level. So I'm not quite sure how we go from a 4 to a 7. We seem to when we add that no card. So whether or not there is something during the week that again ties us into that whole cycle of life issue, an event that could take place. So that's it for this week, guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. Have a great week, everyone. Keep safe, be happy, and spread some love around.